Hello, I'm here with Cads Oakley, reputed DevOps evangelist and true gentleman. Cads, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
It's wonderful to have you here. So let's start with something that is obviously top of conversation, not only here at ChefConf, but throughout the chef community. What DevOps is or is becoming, and what does DevOps mean to you?
So I think that DevOps is supposed to be a culture, and we've done DevOps a slight disservice by making it a siloed group of people. It is not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be a collaboration across the entire organization, across the entire business. I tend to refer to things more like squad ops now, where we talk about systems, quality, users, and DevOps. But it has to be an all-encompassing. If we're talking about like traditional DevOps methodologies, that's what we were talking about. We were talking about involving every part of the business. And that's what I think DevOps really should be.
Very interesting. So if we're trying to implement squad ops as it is, what are some of the hurdles to actually getting that Nirvana, if you will, to actually come together?
So the biggest issue I find is that it's really easy to say, well, we want an operations team that can provide some self-service tools to engineering and make engineering better. When we're really talking about DevOps and squad ops, what we're trying to do is create teams that are pulled from everywhere. So you want a couple of developers, you want an SRE type person, you want a QA type person, you want somebody who understands how to manage the project, you want somebody from the business, you want to be able to have that team together. It's very rare to do that. Especially in traditional environments where you're used to seeing like a hierarchy of people. However, if you let it happen and you put in place the tooling for it, then it does just naturally flow. People start talking about how they're doing things and showing how things are working, and people get on the same page and they drive forwards that way.
So obviously collaboration is huge.
Yeah.
And it's really at the basis of what we're talking about here.
Right.
So what are some best practices or patterns for success that you've seen in really getting people to collaborate, especially when they have been previously siloed?
Okay. So the first part of that for me is that management kind of has to get out of the way. And I am a manager, and that's what I do as a role. But if we think about ourselves as engineers on the engineering teams, the only thing that we do differently is that we do soft problems rather than the technical problems. Right, and we empower the team to work, then the collaboration starts to naturally flow. You start to go, oh, go and have that conversation with so-and-so, or X is the best person, go and get a brain dump from that person. And the flow starts to happen in a two-way direction, right? It doesn't become a football huddle where everybody's like scrummed in and just talking about what they're doing. They're starting to get an idea about how the business is working with the things that they're doing. The other part of that is that you need decent tools. It's hilarious to me that traditionally the operations people are the least socially aware. That's that's the stereotype that we have, right? But we're the most vocal about things like whether Slack is better than HipChat, is better than IM, is better than or Google Hangouts, whatever it is. We're very vocal about those things. So let the team pick that set of tools that works for it, and put in place pipes that allow those things to happen, right? So that you can have real-time conversations whilst you're actually sat at your desk. You don't have to go out and talk to people directly. A real-time conversation is still as good. We describe the things that we're doing, right? And that means that you can only get new process, like good new process, if it starts to come from the team, right? There may be things that are slightly wrong with it. You might need to trim that down, right, to make it less wasteful. But if the process is generated by the team, then it has a much greater chance of success.
Talk to me a little bit about your view on how do you help people really understand, at the end of the day, their code or their release process, what have you, how that contributes to the bigger picture of whatever everyone in the whole squad ops movement is working for. Right.
So the first thing to do is really realize what's a process and what is the process overall versus what is a procedure, i.e. this is the way I do this task, right? Showing people where they fit in that whole pipeline, and there's a reason I'm using the word pipeline there, because I spend a lot of time with delivery, and that pipeline actually enforces a mindset of I am working to get my code from the developer to a customer, not from a laptop to a box. Right? It's from a person to another person. right? And when you start bringing those people in, you start bringing in people to that mindset. People start realizing that, oh, you're actually talking about how I do work and how I am part of the business and how what I do actually creates value proposition for us, right? It's a very easy thing to sit there and say, oh, you should not have any process at all and you should just let it all happen.
Yep.
It's very difficult in actual fact.
To make that work in real life.
Right, because that becomes anarchic and you have random things like everybody must use Emacs, everybody must use VI, whatever the war is, there will be one. But if you can bring people in and say, look, here's why deployment is important. Here's why testing is important. If I can catch a bug here, right, then I've prevented all of these people having to waste cycles.
An entire ripple effect down the chain.
And there's a largely discredited, $1, $10, $100 issue with finding bugs. It's not so much about the cost. It's not so much about the monetary cost. It's more about the time cost. Right? In a traditional environment where you have sort of an engineer writes some code and throws it over the wall to QA, who tests it, and they might miss something, and then that goes to operations, and then they deploy it, and then a customer finds the bug, right? The person that they call is operations, and operations is now trying to maintain something that they don't have any understanding of.
Yes.
Right? If you introduce people to this is how the life cycle works, then the chances are, and it's not 100%, but it's a much better...
Nothing in life is.
Right.
But you're definitely improving the odds.
Right. It's much better odds that the developer is going to go, you know what, I'm going to make sure that my stuff does what it's supposed to do. And Q is going to go, I'm going to really try and break this as much as I can. And the operations guy is going to say, how does this actually work? Because if I'm going to get called, I kind of want to know how this works and who do I talk to, right? And then suddenly, again, you've just generated an entire squad ops team without actually doing anything. It exists.
And then it's there.
And it's there.
Very cool. Well, Cads, thank you so much for taking the time with us today. Awesome talking with you. Appreciate all the contributions to the community.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.